financial
Okay.
session.
All right, thanks for taking the time to do this, and we're going to walk through the budget in as much detail as you have questions for. And, just know, I'm just providing information, we're gonna put things out there and you decide what's gonna stick to the wall, right? So you're just gonna see a lot of information, you've got some time to think about it before you get together and start making decisions.
Yep.
And that sort of thing, and just stop me at any time to ask questions.
And as we move into this will give us a clear picture of what our deficit looks like it's gonna be for next year.
Yep.
Okay.
And where your vacancies are, and some conversation about what you're filling and not filling, and how you're filling it.
Okay.
Okay, but I wanna start with where we're at for this year, because that always sort of leads you into what's gonna happen next year. So you've seen this report many times, this is the budget report through February. Actually, did you do this through
I
March?
did it to March 2 today.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we didn't change to 9 here, right?
Well, it's halfway through March, so.
But you won't write any more warrants in March.
Right.
Yeah, so I think we go to 9 and, yeah. Cause this report is through March. And so, these are the budgets that you adopted last fall, these are the year-to-date expenditures, and these are the balances remaining. And then this tells us there's 25% of the year remaining, and this is how much of your money is remaining. So one of the first things, remember in the general fund, when we get to June, we will be making 2 additional payments to teachers. They get paid on 12 months, work for the 10, and so they get their 2 extra payments in. So we need more than the remaining of the year, right? And then,
Does this amount include that?
it doesn't, but I've got some numbers for you that will talk about that calculation.
So is it 75 or is it 66 year to
Uh,
date?
remaining,
They
Oh.
changed it to a 9, so that did change, cause now that's through March.
oh, I
April,
see,
May,
what you're
last.
seeing on your sheet and what's on the screen, yeah, I just changed it to March.
Also itself.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does, sorry about that. So, the general fund, I have some additional numbers for you. I wanna talk just quickly about the transportation fund. You can see we're creeping right up on the, remaining budget authority. So, I am going to run some more numbers on the transportation, see where we're gonna land. We have an unknown in the additional fuel charges that, are usually billed at the end of the year. And I might bring forward to you a budget amendment for transportation, cause we really don't wanna we don't wanna spend over the budget. But we can do a budget amendment, the board adopts it, it goes to the OPI, and then we can use some of our reserves if we need it. And I'd rather not run the risk of overspending a budget, cause that's like a huge problem, right? Huge black mark on the district, which we don't wanna have.
We're not gonna have that.
Yeah, so I'll make sure that we are prepared to address that if it looks like we're not gonna make it. So back to the general fund, I think we're gonna get right where we need to be, which is at 0. So, based on, the past year, I've been able to calculate what we will still owe the teachers in June and what their benefits will be. And then look at what's remaining and say, okay, we're spending about $50,000 a month in the general fund over and above salaries and benefits. And so, we've got 3 months remaining at $50,000 a month roughly. We're gonna skate right in to where we need to be. I know that there are requests for supplies for next year. We are not going to know if we can do those until June. I wanna make certain that we don't overspend the budget again, because of the, ramifications on the district's reputation.
And if I
So-
remember correctly, this last year, we chose not to do next year's, which would have been this year's supplies, until it was this year's budget.
Yes.
Which would make sense, not to put next year's supplies on this year's budget, they need to be on next year's budget anyway.
Yeah,
It would have
Okay.
just been if we had an extra. And
Yeah.
we could have bought it this year, but, we
Okay.
just calculated, because according to the CBA, by February first, the teachers have to put in what they would like,
Mhm.
and we received all that and we added that all up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Gwen, when you say we're gonna skate right in at zero, that includes this double salary?
Yes.
too?
Yes, yep, we've got everything covered. I think we're gonna be right where, we're gonna land right where we wanna be. If we just continue regular operations, we don't wanna see a spike in purchasing or anything all of a sudden, but, you know, I know you've got field trips coming up, you've got certain things planned, the track, program has to carry on with all of that, but, you know, we shouldn't be buying anything that's out of the ordinary, or we're not gonna make it, okay? So, and I think the rest of the funds, and the tuition fund, we can fall back on, because that is remember, that's a special education levy, but it's a repayment to the district of special ed costs that they've incurred. So, we can likely move some additional special ed costs in there and relieve the general fund. Sometimes we've had to supplement the food service program, I don't think that's gonna happen. Traffic ed, it doesn't necessarily pay for itself, so we may have to, you know, take a look at that a little bit so that we don't have to subsidize it. You do have some money in compensated absences, and you have some longtime employees who are going to be leaving, and the payout of their sick and annual leave can come out of this compensated absences. So we're gonna be tapping other funds and avoiding the general fund, so that we get right where we need to be. So, the good news is, I think we're gonna land pretty much exactly where we wanna be. So the information you have in front of you, and I just hand numbered the pages, and if I have the documents electronically, I will put them up on the screen. There's a couple of them that you're just gonna have the paper, but I thought it would be nicer to have the paper in front of you so that you can take it with you, because again, we're gonna talk about, a lot of options, and then you're gonna have some time to think about it before you have to make decisions. So, okay, so that's kind of where we're at today, and where we're gonna be as far as finishing up the school year. And then I wanna go back just to a couple of numbers that you've seen before, because this question did come up. So this was and this isn't in your packet, this was my first draft that I did even before we'd had our second count. I was just trying to look ahead and say, okay, what does it look like? And on my first draft, I told you that your new money would be $17,000, and that your certified salary increases were gonna be right at 63,000, okay? So that was draft number 1. Then I went to, draft number 2, and then this was after, the final count. We had the new rates for special ed and a whole variety of things. We had our quality educator counts. And at that point, it looked like new money would be 88,000. Certified staff increases would still be 63,000. And so remaining budget authority that hadn't been obligated is 25,000. That's not much money as far as an increase, but you've covered the bulk of your salary increases, so. But anyway, today you're gonna see this $20,000 again, and I just wanted to make certain, because, you know, some people heard the 88,000, and today it's gonna be in the 20,000 range, and why is that? Well, because I had always told you what the certified staff increases were gonna be, and what the remainder.
And the certified staff increase is just our teachers, that doesn't include paras, it doesn't include, just our teachers.
Yep, and it doesn't include anything for your administrators, your non-union folks. So those are discussions you need to have, is what we're gonna do
So what
for
can be
those
done with
folks.
this $25,000?
You can do whatever you want with it.
It can go in.
Yep.
It can fill any gap.
Yep.
There's no restrictions.
Nope. No, the general fund is pretty much wide open for you to use. I mean, it is wide open for you to use however you want. So I wanna revisit one other conversation. Remember when Bea was here and we were talking about FTEs and we couldn't arrive at a number, and the county soup had 38 FTEs, and so anyway, I went back and recapped, these are all of your certified staff members, and you do have this in your documents, cause you might wanna take that with you and look at it a little bit. I noted the vacancies, I just noted an elementary vacancy, not a grade, because obviously that decision hasn't been made. We know that we have a retirement, so potential vacancy there for that position. And then the music has been vacant, last year and again this year. So those, and then also, and actually this isn't going to be a vacancy, but this position will be, there's conversation about what you'll be doing with that position. So it's not necessarily a vacancy.
Oh, I just, isn't Mrs. Cole, like, the one that's married to Alec, isn't she a first grade teacher?
It's a possibility.
Oh,
Did I
because
miss?
I don't see her name up here, so.
Alec,
Madison.
Oh, Madison.
right here. She's in PE. No, that's my mistake. Is there an elementary PE? Okay, so
Gina
she's,
Ferland does some
she's
of it.
first grade teacher?
I thought she
She's
was.
up with Weeper.
Yeah.
She's with Weeper
Okay,
at the time.
alright. I mistook that, good catch.
Yeah, that's what I would make, cause like this is a huge.
We'll move her right up here where she belongs.
Some junk, like lots of junk or shit.
Okay, perfect. And then that takes us back to this little bit of information right here. So what this represents is the number of students they have in their class, well, in that grade. And in some cases you have 2 teachers per grade, in some cases you have 1. But these are their student counts this year. And if you move them all down a year, these are what the student counts will look like next year. So when you're talking about, okay, we've got this elementary vacancy, is there a need in these numbers to fill that or not? And so your kindergarten classes can have, let's see, I had to make myself some notes. Your kindergarten teachers, your kindergarten classrooms can have 20 students. And you, between your pre-K and K, you have 14 pre-K and 25 kindergartens, so 25 kindergartens really too many for one classroom, so you're looking at 2 there. And that's K through 2, you can have 20 students. But if you have more than that, you can use a para. But for example, here for grade 1, you've got 2 teachers and 25 students. So again, too many for 1, but, yeah, but do you need a full 2, or how do you?
What do we do, one with a para?
Yeah. So you,
Gwen, if I can, I think there was a question the other night about pre-K,
okay,
and the pre-K, we can go up to 18 with a full-time para. So it's supposed to be 10, I see here it shows 14, but we started with 10, but OPI told me we'll go up to 18 with 1 para.
Oh, that's great.
okay.
On pre-K?
And so 20 is the highest, is the recommended class size, again, for grade 2, and you're gonna be at 23, and that might actually be a grade that you think about a teacher and a para, cause you've got 3 students over your mark. And then you get to grade 3 and you have 28, but at grade 3, you can go to 28. So again, you've got a 2nd, 3rd grade teacher,
So 3rd grade up to what grade can you have 28?
3rd and 4th,
3rd and 4th can have 28 students.
yep.
So next year we're gonna go over on the 4th grade.
Looks like it, yeah. So maybe one of the 3rd grade teachers becomes a 4th grade teacher for next year. That's kinda how you flex them around. And, the administrative staff will get together and talk about what they want this to look like, but they wanted kind of to hear what you're thinking today about how much money do we have and what are our, how are we gonna,
Next year?
yeah.
Well, I think it's helpful if the board gives us expectations, give the administrators expectations, because that helps to guide the decision making.
Yes.
You know, we would like 3 teachers with 30 kids, you know, how fiscally responsible would that be? I'm saying that.
Yeah.
So if the board says, well, we saw the numbers, this is what we're thinking, shoot for this, and then if we have a problem, we can always come back and ask. But I think your guidance on that would be appreciated.
I think 32 kids in the fourth grade class is too many, because that's a pretty important piece. It's the first year they get letter grades, and
Sure.
I think that
16 to
needs to be fixed.
So maybe, like we said, your third grade
Maybe move
becomes
one
a
of- yeah.
fourth
16
grade.
and
Take one
16.
of these other classes that are kind of close to the boundary and give a para and move.
The other thing that we have to be cautious of, I've learned, is that we can't guess, we can't say, let's hold it, let's have one teacher, and we only have 11 kids, but more are gonna come. You're better off wanting the class and having to open up another section,
Yeah.
right, than to, right off the bat, cause then we're in a deficit. What if we don't get? We can't promise that, but that has been here, that has been the model that they've used. Well, we know we're gonna get them, we know in August they're gonna come. I just think in being respectful of fiscal status we're at, I think we have to be more careful with that. And say, we have to have the numbers, we can't promise, and then we can open up another class. Let's see if it gets enlarged, we'll find somebody.
And so if I'm looking when we hit grade 5, we're gonna be one student over, so that might be a
Actually,
student per.
fifth and eighth,
Oh.
fifth through eighth are 30 students.
Oh, so they're right in
So
the
you're gonna be
ballpark.
right where you need to be.
Perfect.
And then do your sixth, seventh, and eighth move from classroom to classroom, or is sixth self-contained?
Yeah, that was K to 6.
Okay, so you're gonna be over, so you need to,
So for 6th grade, we,
But sixth grade
yeah,
is two
has-
teachers.
but you have 2 teachers.
So we're good.
Yeah, and then you've got this one vacancy, but it looks like maybe you
we
can,
might be able to shift enough that
Yeah.
it won't be a
Yeah.
problem.
yeah. So,
Cause
food
I
for
know
thought.
Mrs. Gunn has been the only teacher with a prayer before, that's something she's not used to. So she has 23.
But she's not, there's 2 grade 2 teachers, so if they're gonna have 23 split between 2.
We probably don't need to.
Right, that's
Right,
right.
one
Yeah.
might become a
Right.
4th grade teacher, or, right, or a pre-K, or, right?
Yeah.
And if you say something like to the administrators, we're looking at the numbers and we think there's only gonna be one for that number, they would have to convince you otherwise, before you make that. I think that's a very important aspect. So anybody wants to give this enormous number and help it, but 23 is nothing.
Right.
And so the numbers in the 7th and 8th grade probably don't really mean anything per class, because they move from teacher to teacher and they're in different places. So, anyway, this is a look at, and thanks for that correction on the 1st grade teacher, appreciate that. That's the kind of thing I'm looking for, because I'm not here every day, I'm shooting in the dark a certain amount.
Right.
And we want this to be an actual workable budget for you, so appreciate that, Monica. And so then on, back to your sheets, and maybe I have this electronically, yeah. So this is a look at the high school, and Heidi, shared this with me today. And this is, the quarter 3 schedule, and it's the teacher and the period and the class they're teaching, and underneath of it is the number of students that they have. And so you can see that there. Then you see the total number of students that teacher serves, and then they teach 3 classes, so their average class size is 7. And one of the things Heidi pointed out is, for example, here's an algebra class, and here's a second algebra class, and they could have been combined.
Correct.
So, yeah. So this gives you a look at, and some of this has to do with scheduling too, but it gives you a good look at the number of students that are in these classes. And so I just, again, providing information, you know, digest it, and your administration will likely bring some recommendations, and I thought Heidi was gonna, oh, she's back there. Heidi did wanna speak to one request that she feels is very important, and I want her to do that.
Oh, definitely, the high school needs 2 full-day high school English teachers. The junior high and high school share English teachers, and due to last year's, we didn't have a teacher at first, so we found somebody who's willing to work part-time, and so this year, excuse me, she's also part-time, but going forward, we really need English teachers. English is the one subject we can't combine. I mean, that's, so, and Mrs. McComas is our English teacher now in that halftime position. She is looking for a full-time job, so I recommend that we hire her full day, and we can split up some of those classes, like all the freshmen are together in one period.
That gets to be too much.
Yeah. So, that is something that I think should be a priority.
And literacy is an area of need.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can see that the class sizes are significant there, so I wanted to be sure that Heidi spoke to that.
So just a process check, you guys are gonna come up with specific recommendations about where to put everybody after we have this.
Yeah, and I would like the board to make, maybe the chair, make it known to the administration, to all of us.
Right, as
that
we're
this is
talking.
gonna be the format that's followed. You're gonna make recommendations, you're gonna use the numbers.
Right.
I'm gonna present to you, this is what we're looking at. Because we've talked about, when we talked about Mrs. Rayburn's, vacancy, and how we can meld that and blend that with what we have. Because some of these things can be, we have to sort of be teachers, but some of these things can be blended and melded, so we don't have to extend so much, but we do need, what we need is bare bones. We need music, we need English, that we need, but if we could just, I would appreciate it. I think it would give good guidance to the administration.
Yeah.
Because then we know what you're thinking, and if there's something we have to talk about, we talk about it. We have to explain, there's nothing wrong with us having to justify why we want what we want. Same thing when we get to paras, I'm jumping the gun, but we need solid paras dealing with the kids, solid math. It's too scattered, and it's here, it's there, everywhere, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Okay, so that's giving you kind of a big picture look at, oops, that was, I wanted to talk one more time about, so I wanted to follow up then with your, this is your, and you have that in, this in your packet, but these are your non-union folks who are on contracts. And then, and you've got a vacancy in the business office, and you've got a vacancy in the nurse. Dr. Walsh thinks 5 days a week might be more than we need.
With the number of students, however, and having a discussion before, talking with Gwen and Taylor, if we can get, tuition reimbursement, because we do have high-need students that need nursing care, and some of that money can be taken from the special ed reimbursement tuition, then that wouldn't come out of the general fund, and we'd be able to. But, I think they have now 5 days a week, 4 or 5 hours a day. It's good, there's a lot to be done, as you know, there's a lot that we've been cleaning up, trying to clean up and trying to get on point, from a, compliance situation, as well as the student needs situation. But I think 5 hours a day is enough if you choose 5 days a week, but now we can possibly get some reimbursement out of special ed, tuition, not all
To pay for the nurses.
because we have students, but it has to be written in their IEPs that they need
Nursing services.
So we're working on that, Well, we will work on that.
So are we holding off on trying to advertise for a nurse until we know what our money situation is?
No, we were holding off to, see what the board is thinking when we look at this, and after the next workshop meeting, so we didn't wanna go out and hire people and then say, oops, we made a mistake. Yeah,
We wanna look at the money first.
yes, yeah, I can't spend it before we have it.
We don't wanna hire a position, we don't know what that position, if it's gonna be filled in-house, or if it's one that we don't need, or one that we need, but maybe it needs to look a little bit different before you put it
And
out.
I would just ask you to be very critical of what the principals present to you as far as within numbers. They're very good people, we have good hearts, we wanna give everybody, but we really have to be careful and look at the numbers.
So, I see it says Shelby Schwal in the daycare, is she just all daycare, and is she the only one in the daycare?
No, sorry, that should be a para/daycare. She goes, I think, just an hour a day to the daycare.
To
Okay,
give her a break, pretty much break. But
Yeah,
she does
so
fill
that
in,
you're-
she's not there, but
And-
she's always.
and her, is that still Tristan Jurek?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just didn't see her name on any of the stuff, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have her separate because they're actually their own fund
They
and,
get paid different.
yeah, Yep, so, but that's a good point, I should have her on this list, so I'll make myself a little note here. And we might have some conversation about the daycare when we get to the budget part of that and what we need. And we do have one vacancy for a para already, and again, in talking to Taylor, she was calculating our special ed tuition rates today, and it's a possibility that we may need some additional paras to meet the IEPs to their fullest, which we're struggling with a little bit. But they would be reimbursed through the tuition fund. And really, the paras don't come out of the general fund for the most part. They're either in a grant or they're in the tuition fund, so.
Including if they happen to be a pair who, let's say, we put them in second grade because right? Would that still also come out of a grant or something, or would that come out of general
Pretty
fund?
much their title or special ed, one or the other, yep. I think maybe the high school aid here is general fund, now that I say that, but we might see her as we go through it, and it'll alert you to it. So anyway, that's kind of the looking, 30,000 foot view of the staff that you have, and so then let's look at how we pay for them. So, so one interesting thing that I wanted to point out that's a change this next voting round is that in the past, remember I've talked about you have to have a base levy that is 80% of the formula that's in law, right? Everybody, that's the minimum you can have. And so in order to get to the minimum, there's state money, and then there was also a small permissive, non-voted levy on your local taxpayers. Next year, that piece is going to move to a county levy. So you'll see a significant decrease in the school levies on your tax bill, but when you look down at your county levies, you'll see a higher,
So the school
levy.
will get more money, but we just won't
Yeah, you
get
won't,
paid for it.
you don't get more money, we just,
Comes from a different.
the mills will just change, and
But we won't get less. Not
Well,
the county's gonna take more.
the significant change is that now it's a countywide levy. It's not just based on the value in Plains. It's based on the taxable value of all of the property in Sanders County. And so then I was like, oh, is that going to?
Help or hurt?
Yes, right. And actually, I have that information right here. You're gonna see a reduction of 1.38 mils personally on your personal tax. Because I have wondered though, the high has to come down and the low has to come up in order to equalize this across the county, right? But, so that's the good news, because I was like, oh, what is this gonna do to smaller schools? But you're in a good place and you're gonna see 1.5 mil decrease. And then it's just gonna be in a different place. So when they look at Plains school levies, they're gonna be like, oh, looks like we got a 20 mil decrease, but in reality, those mills are now down reported in the county levies and not in the Plains high school levy. You're gonna pay most of them minus the 1.5, but it's just gonna disappear off of Plains schools levies. So, just
Speaking of levies, when we made the decision to raise the non-voting levy last time, we still had some left. We didn't go the full amount.
general fund, are you
Yeah.
talking about? So we have room to do voted levies.
But I thought we didn't.
We
use our
didn't do the
total.
whole
We didn't
amount.
do the whole amount for our
That we
non-voting.
were allowed to do for the non,
Yeah.
instead, right? We
I thought we
voted to
maxed
go up to like
No, we didn't.
or something, we didn't max it, I don't
We
think.
did not.
Oh,
max
are you
it.
talking tuition?
It was whatever we voted on that
Cause-
was a non-voted on levy, that we were taking
Okay.
the minimum, we could take the maximum, we went somewhere in
We
the
went
middle.
somewhere in the middle.
That was
We went-
special ed
we went for-
tuition, that was special ed tuition.
It was the special ed
and-
tuition,
yeah.
but we do still have some opportunity
do.
to use
Yes.
what was remaining and
Yes.
what we could
Yes.
ask for.
As a matter of fact, it has increased significantly, so you actually have quite a bit of room to grow.
Yeah, and I think that was the 160.
161, yep.
Use, X amount of it, said when King was like, once, because we're gonna be 85, so leaving it there so we're on the high amount, so we had to use it and use it on staff salaries.
Yeah, well, that was Idea B and Idea
Oh, yeah,
preschool,
okay,
yeah, so, but that was the, special ed
So we
tuition.
still have some opportunity
You
to,
do.
to
Yep,
get some
and
money
you
that
can
we don't
use
have
it-
to have a vote and levy.
Yeah, and you can use it to offset some of the, to kinda help, boost the budget that you're now struggling with, right?
Okay.
Yep, and we'll look at that. So every employee is on here, here's your superintendent, your principals, and we're talking about, making some changes there. And I
What page is
think,
this?
so the only place you're gonna have it is on the screen now, Robert,
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
yep. Cause this is a huge budget document, but I can share it with you all electronically. Can I make it bigger for you? Is that,
Oh, yeah, that's.
okay, thank you, I, look, I
Give
just
it back.
undid it. There we go, that's what I meant to do, okay. So, and I think we might as well make this adjustment right now, didn't BSA, you're probably looking at 120 on your,
She didn't give us a specific number, she just said 110 probably wasn't going to be enough, and although they're a little bit bigger Class B school, Three Forks just paid 130 for their superintendent, she did not say if they were doctorate level, we don't know, but she did not think 110 would stand,
okay. Do you wanna boost that a little bit as we work our way
Probably
down through
helps,
this?
I mean,
Okay.
at least put in 120 to start with, just see what that looks like.
Okay, and then here you're talking about a full-time principal, and then you're talking about a TOSA, is that where you're leaning?
What's a
Is
TOSA?
a teacher on special assignment?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think
Well,
we know yet, it
we haven't
depends on how
decided.
everything,
Okay,
Yeah.
But we have talked about a half-time principal.
correct, but if
whether
we,
it's-
if we have the two same admin, the numbers are gonna stay the same. They're, even if one of them went to half and half, we're still paying them the same.
pretty close,
Yeah.
yeah,
She
you could
said their
probably get
numbers
into
wouldn't
the
change.
80, you could probably
Right.
get into the 80 for a TOSA.
Right, so, I mean, either way we look at it, we're probably, at this point, if we keep Heidi and Kevin in their spots, they're gonna make the same amount of money. Cause we have two admins already.
Okay, so you're actually considering that you may actually
Considering
have
if-
the same people.
Correct, I think
Okay.
that that's a good place to just be safe,
Okay,
that's at the high end.
Yeah.
Right, if we get a toast or something and we're at 8, I mean, I think we
Yeah.
just stick with the numbers we have for now.
I thought
Okay.
when we had our
For
last
the-
conversation, you said that TOSA was gonna be a savings of 30,000.
No,
Well, you-
that's not replacing Roy Raybein's position, if we had a principal that did a half-time teacher, half-time principal,
Right.
our savings of 30,000 is not replacing the teacher for the math position or whatever. That's where our savings will be.
in the teacher, not in the principal.
It'll be the half-time teacher position that saves,
Correct.
but I thought you said it was around 30,000.
Yes.
We're not hiring the teacher, correct?
Yep,
And I just wanna make sure, for the record, if we can go back up a little bit, to put TOSA under Heidi, I think
is premature.
We just don't put it, yeah.
absolutely
I don't even know that we would
record.
put it anywhere at this point, cause I don't know that that's gonna be an
Was the
option we have
position just
anyway.
saying, the
We're
position's
just-
cost will stay the same,
That's
we
correct.
did this resignation.
Okay, good point. Okay, and so these are the salaries for next year. I've moved them up a step. You had a couple of teachers who are going to move over a lane into, because they got their masters, I've moved them over. These vacancies, so they can bring as many as 5 years of service to the district. So this is a teacher with their masters plus 1 and 5. This is the maximum that you would pay these teachers.
Okay.
So you very likely will hire for less, and then there'll be some savings. But I wanted to make sure we had it covered for them, so that you don't have any restrictions. And this grade 2 is a possibility that you maybe would not replace, right?
Correct.
And, yeah, Katie was one of the ones that went to the MA1. And then Lori Raybine, there's been conversation about maybe this is a half-time teacher, and maybe you can shift things around and save that entire salary. So there's potential there of $120,000, so that would relieve you
A lot.
a lot, yep. And then here are your,
Hey, sorry for the interruption. I just wanna remind everybody that Friday, the driver's ed will be using the parking lot. So plan on parking somewhere else if you're here on Friday.
so then your counselors and, a according to the Board of Public Ed, you're required to have one counselor per 400 students. You're a little higher than that requirement, you're at 1.5,
And we have over
And-
400 students, so.
yes, yeah.
So we're kinda right where we legally probably have to be.
How many students do you have?
22.
Okay,
It's an
All right.
interesting number.
yeah,
How many did you say?
yep,
Is that
So-
counting, the homeschool group,
Those be including.
and that is included, not the ones that are here? Okay, I'm just curious,
so you're landing right where you need to be.
okay.
Your librarian is one per every 500 students, and is one of these full-time, do I have, oh,
No,
there,
they've been
both halves.
divided, Mrs. Meredith is part-time librarian, part-time title, and Mrs. Holland is
is just
full-time.
strictly
She's just
part-time.
part-time
Okay.
librarian, so you could, that's a discussion for us to have, we could theoretically then go back to Mrs. Meredith, who used to be a full-time librarian, and then, give that title to someone else who has a gap in his schedule.
Okay.
And-
So there's a place to combine that
Maybe do
into
some
one,
Yeah, and
okay.
if there's a need on the high school level, we're just starting these conversations for electives and things like that, maybe Mrs. Holland would be a part-time elective person. We don't know, but we're not looking to get rid of anybody, we're gonna maximize their use.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then your special education department, and, by law, you have to spend a minimum of $103,000 of your general fund on special education. And so we'll we may move part of one of these teachers over to the tuition fund, because as you can see, we're gonna be more in the $158,000. And so we can probably get $50,000 there.
Doesn't Gina Furlan do special ed as well? She not
She
be under
does,
that?
she's already being paid out of the tuition fund,
Okay.
and then she's a part-time elementary,
teacher.
yeah,
Yeah,
so I think
okay.
she was up here as a part,
Yeah, I saw her somewhere.
yeah.
I'm not sure it's not, so that's why I was curious. I did not
I
remember
don't
seeing
see her
her.
there, and we'll see her when we get to the, I think maybe title. She's in tuition and title, but we'll check that out when we get to tuition. So anyway, if you're,
So I was like, wait, where are we? Okay.
okay, and so there's potential savings there in the speech pathologist with your decision to join the co-op.
Right,
And then the school psychologist, I budgeted for it last year and you didn't have one, so I'm assuming that,
That would be
again,
part of the co-op.
with the co-op,
Yeah.
you don't need to fill those positions, so I've already zeroed those out. And then here's your both ed teachers, and, Katie is part, I think out of some VOED money is
Okay.
part of her salary. We'll see the other half of her somewhere later in the budget,
Okay.
that half of her in the general fund. And then here are your union positions. Maren, a portion of her salary is paid out of transportation. We could bump that a little bit, because there is quite a bit of paperwork and such behind the transportation department, and you don't have a transportation supervisor. And typically, school districts who don't have a transportation supervisor will do a 80-20 split, so we could maybe boost this up to a 80% and 20% on transportation.
Okay.
And transportation's a non-loaded levy, so
Okay.
there's another small possibility. Drayton is half here and half out of the technology fund, and then there's Russell's salary. And we want you to be considering, what are we gonna do with these salaries and with your administrators? What kind of a percentage of, I probably need to, provide some numbers to you for those, like what a 1% would cost, and then you can say, oh, well, we'll double that, it'd be a 2%, or we can 3 times that, and
Okay.
but I will provide you with, I should have done that today, with a 1% on the classified, and then you can adjust it upward from there.
Because the 25,000 in essence over could help cover that, but also as we're combining things, it'll make that pot grow even more theoretically.
Yeah,
Their contract is still in effect for 1 year, so whatever that raise was, is good for that year. still for another year.
in their negotiated
the
agreement,
classified
they'll get a step.
And the principals get whatever the teachers get.
Okay. Was it a 3%?
Well, the principals before have negotiated with us and then sent us a letter and then we voted to accept
But
it.
Did they,
That's what we have
did
done in
they,
the past.
I don't even think Heidi, she's not in here, she didn't ask for a defense,
They
asked
just
for a
got the
stipend.
automatic, we got that.
Well, she just asked for a stipend, like, oh, Kevin just asked for
He
more
just asked for
days.
days.
He didn't ask for any more money, he just got days.
But we didn't vote on it.
Yeah,
We did, we voted on what they asked for.
On his.
And we gave him his days and we gave Heidi Fettinger the stipend, but that was all they asked for this last year. Cause they didn't automatically get raises.
No, they don't, because they,
No, we
usually we
voted on
get a
it.
letter,
Correct.
and they
And
say,
we
I
did get a
want.
letter from
Once
them
it
at
happened.
the end of last year.
But
Yeah, but we haven't got one for this year,
Not
for
for
next
this year.
year. I was
Right.
gonna say.
Not this year, no,
we
just
did
last year.
I was like, we have
Yeah.
not got one for this year.
Yeah, we have not gotten a request yet for this next year, correct.
Well, I think you're gonna have to wait and see what model you follow too.
Correct, I
What
think
they
that,
requested.
yeah, I think that's probably why everyone's sort of holding their breath and waiting to see how
This shakes
administration shakes out, absolutely.
And so, non-unions here, and then you've got your custodians do come out of the general fund. You have a building reserve fund that you're paying a lot of your repairs and maintenance costs out of, but you can't pay salaries out of
Okay.
it. So they have to remain in the general fund.
Okay.
And then here's your school nurse, and I think see this one, 6 hours a day, 3 days a week. I can adjust on that, but portion of that could go over to the tuition fund for the special needs students, so.
And how much of that could go over to the tuition fund?
Well, it'll depend how many hours are in their, IEP,
Okay.
and so,
So
and
that
those have
would
to
be
be.
determined later.
Yes, when the IEPs are rewritten,
Do we, okay,
because
so
currently there's nothing in there.
currently, yeah, currently it doesn't work, yeah, they have to be compliant.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you have a couple of, part-time custodians in the kitchen that are paid out of this area as well. And so that's the bulk of the salaries, and then in these other funds, we will see some additional salaries, and keep an eye for Gina and make sure I haven't dropped half of
Sure,
her.
Gina's somewhere.
Yes, make sure we see her
Fern,
someplace.
where are you?
So these are all the operating budgets, and this is what was budgeted last year. This was what was budgeted, or actually spent the previous year, and of course, we're not through the year yet this year, so we don't know how close we met our target. But, I will provide you with a report through March to kind of match up to this next time. But I just want you to get an idea of what kinds of things, so the instructional budget, hits the classroom directly. This 1,000 function code is everything instruction, and, the professional education services in the 1,000, nothing actually comes to mind, but we spent quite a bit of money there. I'll have to, professional educational
Is that like
services.
PIR days or what is that?
Usually that's professional development, which
Instructional
is,
books, it's the electronic books and things that the teachers use, it's the $1,000.
the professional educational services though, Dr. Walsh, the 320
Oh, I was
code.
talking about instruction.
Yeah,
What is,
what kinds of things might we spend there?
That would be,
I'm drawing a blank.
that would be our curriculum consortium that we have to belong to.
Okay,
Any of the organizations that we need to be part of.
okay. And technical services in the classroom,
Is that like
Well, it's under the
subscriptions
par-
to something?
Technical, what'd you say?
Is that like some subscriptions to like,
this is contracted services, so
That could be what they
something,
have for the Chromebooks and what we use to replace, to fix.
yeah, that's gonna fall in,
Take care of.
actually, that's all coming out of technology.
Oh, wow.
It's quite a little budget, so there's not
Technology
much
is
happening there, but, could be repair, having contract someone to repair iPads and that sort of thing.
But wouldn't that be
Wouldn't
repair and
be under
maintenance
repair
services
and
right underneath
repair
it?
and maintenance?
With a bigger budget?
Could. Is Maren running some reports so she can tell us? Look at her, she's on it.
Working
Okay.
on it.
Instructional field trips, we all know what those are, good for us.
Woo-hoo,
And, yeah. Travel out of district, and that's a 582, that could be some professional development, not a lot. Here's your biggie, your classroom supplies. And then books, I think this 90,000 was because there was talk about adopting a curriculum, which we
Serious, yeah.
did not do, and I don't know, is there a plan for something?
They did reading last year, K to 5,
Okay,
K to 6, right? You were on that committee. Reading
Yeah, we
this
did
year.
K to 6.
So now we have to look and see what we're gonna do 7 to 12.
So are you saying that this $90,000 has not been spent this year?
well, it's that situation of we need it somewhere else and this wasn't spent, and so it's probably, because we're gonna get right, to zero, so I couldn't say that it wasn't gonna be spent, or that it hasn't been spent, it hasn't
But it
been
was
spent
budgeted
on
for
books.
That could be one of the areas, I know we've had some community members asking with paying for, especially the, legal fees and all of that, well, where are we losing it? Well, maybe we didn't replace curriculum this year, that might be an area that got hit.
Absolutely. Yep. So you did reading, and so you're thinking maybe reading, 7 through 12 might be a place that we're going?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll note that.
Also
And,
looking at some science books from the AP class.
Okay.
Environmental
of course, that would be high school, but, or no, I think it's all lumped together,
It's all
there's not a
together.
high school, yep, good catch, okay, so,
So science.
Science with AP.
okay. Periodicals,
Library budget.
well, there is a library budget, this would be periodicals they would use in the classroom, and it comes to mind Scholastic, or there's a variety of
Yeah,
science.
Even in newspapers, they get the newspapers on the.
Newsweek.
The local newspapers each week.
True.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
so not a lot of money there and not a lot of spent the previous year. And then minor equipment, a variety of things that would go in the classroom, even a desk or something would fall in under your minor equipment, or a table, or a. So what'd we see, Maren? What-
Okay, so I ran a report for the professional educational services,
Mhm.
and that's bringing up Montana Digital Academy, phonemic awareness programs, something about the Renaissance products, I don't know what that is, but,
Is that a online?
Online.
they
Isn't
must,
that a
they
reading
must be
thing?
online.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Online services or curriculum or something.
and that was it's already at 10,000 spent, so
Okay,
it's
It was
something
budgeted
we use.
13 and 10 spent.
Right,
That's because more students are taking those classes, those MTBA classes
Yeah.
as well.
so did you run it for technical too, or?
Yep,
Okay,
there, cause
she's
our
going next.
software is very, very user friendly.
Yeah.
Just for the rest of this year.
I'll be back with another report, which one do you want? Technical services?
Yeah,
Okay,
technical.
sure, I'll do that.
Okay, and then maybe some repairs and maintenance.
Okay.
If you run a detail for all of 201, would it give you enough detail?
It'd be like 100 pages.
You're just gonna scroll down and read it to us.
The whole thing.
I'm an iPad.
You're fine.
I'm not
You're
fine.
fine, you're doing good. Alright.
Okay, so then as we go on down, we do have a very tiny bit of technology, budget in the general fund, because you have a technology fund, right? And that's where most everything is paid out of. Half of Drayton's salary comes out of the general fund, but pretty much everything else. And maybe you don't even need to bother with $100 per line item in the general fund on technology. But I'll leave that there until you,
You want technical services?
yes, I do.
Okay, so
Good for you.
that's bringing up plan book subscriptions that the teachers utilize.
We do that,
A lot of them use it, so it's plan books. And,
teachers.
Is that it, this plan book?
school spelling bee, subscription,
Yep, you have to buy the books.
so
With a
that's.
little
There's the
bit.
math fees too, math competitions that they don't want for us. It's math, it's spelling bees.
Oh.
Match,
Yeah,
match.com.
okay.
it's 'cause the teachers
Oh,
do it
Lana.
around here.
Okay, she's,
Always off task.
don't make me start laughing. Repairs, she's gonna look up repairs.
It's my ADD, it's kicking in, right?
Repair and maintenance. Okay, so we do have some budget for your guidance counselors, not a lot, and a little bit of professional development opportunity, a teeny tiny bit of supplies. And same with, nursing, just a little bit of travel if
Since
they,
we've done without a nurse for a lot of the year, do we have some of this budget left?
I'm certain, but doesn't take very long to spend $1,000
No, it's
in
not a
nursing
big
supplies.
budget.
And even if you don't have a
The
nurse, you
nurses
still
don't
need
want the
Band-Aids
first
and.
aid.
And really,
Yeah.
she was replacing a lot of out-of-date stuff that was just sitting in there, so it might have got eaten up just trying to get
It's not
up-to-date compliance
Yeah,
things,
This
yeah.
isn't gonna save us.
No,
No, it
not.
isn't.
I have repair and maintenance services if you
Oh,
wanna know.
yes,
That is mostly the copier lease and copies, the piano tuning and repair, so it's mostly the copiers and the leases for those.
Okay, with that. Under repair and maintenance.
Yeah,
Oh,
I didn't code it.
I know,
It wasn't.
yeah. That maybe could go someplace else, but it'd be that money will go with it if we do. So,
oh, here's the school services in Montana, that's the consortium we're part of, right?
yes,
Okay.
yep. And we did leave a little bit of money in curriculum, we talked about, well, curriculum and instructional are kind of the same, do we wanna, but we thought it wouldn't hurt to have some split apart, so that if we really needed something and we'd spent all of our instructional budgets, we could tap that a little bit, but this is, basically this, belonging to this curriculum consortium uses most of that, what we budgeted. And then there's a little bit of travel, probably for professional development there. And then there's your library budget. And in some of these, we didn't spend any the year before, but we didn't feel comfortable reducing them to zero, so we kind of followed from the previous year. And of course, technical services there would be repairs of, technology that has to do with the library.
Like this, screens.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah, and periodicals, we don't use a lot of periodicals anymore, but there's a little bit there for that, and some minor equipment. And then the superintendent and board's budget is next, and this is where we budget for your legal fees, for fingerprinting, in your technical services. And I think we exhausted those. Your insurance, and this is likely going to go up by 8% because we have a contract that says it can't go up more than 8%, so how much do you think it's gonna go up?
8%,
Yeah.
absolutely, it's absolutely going up 8%.
Okay, so there we go with that. And then there's a certain amount of advertising that's required by law, right? Pretty much every time you turn around, it's like, oh, we have to put that in the newspaper, oh, we have to put that in the newspaper, so. Printing and binding, not much there for, and this is the superintendent and board budget, so if you travel to any trainings or anything, it comes out of this budget. There's a little bit in supplies, books here, periodicals, minor equipment, and then some dues and fees. This is for school administrators of Montana. This is for you to belong to the Montana School Boards Association. So those are dialed in pretty well. And then here's your principal's budget, so they have a little bit of money to do something with. And check out technical services there and see what kinds of things we did. There, Mary, thank you. And some advertising and maybe teacher, hirings and such would fall under the principals for advertising, to put newspaper ads if you're doing that for your positions you're trying to fill, and again, printing, a little bit of out-of-district travel for them to attend a conference or something, not much. They can only go as far as Polson, I think.
Maybe Missouri.
Very little bit for supplies. What'd you find?
Okay, so we have canine inspection, reimbursement of Infinite Campus, the subscription to the Remind app, mystery science kits, so that's it for that one. But that's It's already at $8,000, so.
Okay. Look at us, we're just hitting our targets all over the place. Okay, and then their dues to be part of School Administrators of Montana as well. And then your business office, and we used that up, the technical services.
That's for buying the new software.
That will be where we bought the new software, and then going forward, we'll be paying a annual subscription to Black Mountain. For that. We're gonna need some additional services for Maren for a bit longer till we get out of this Tyler Tech situation, and definitely with her year-end report. It isn't really even her work, seems almost unfair to, required her to report what happened, so. But, TCP is your time clock, did we buy time clock software?
We
Okay,
did last year, the year before.
okay, so this is your ongoing subscription,
Yes.
okay?
And Black Mountain will be the same amount, or will it look different?
No, it's more than that. It's 24,000. And, repairs and maintenance, telephone, this is telephone bills across the district, right? Come out of the business office. Some postage, advertising, printing, all the same. Travel out of district, Maren went last week to a MASBOOK workshop for a day, and then there'll be one in the spring. That's a 4-day training, which will be excellent for her. And some supplies and periodicals, I don't know that you've ever bought a periodical in the business office.
Not yet.
That's probably something we could, move that money someplace else. And minor equipment, that would be extremely minor. And her MASBO membership dues, and really both, she and the assistant clerk should belong. And, maybe even Catherine, because they do a lot of trainings for having to do with Infinite Campus, so. And I know we had Catherine on the phone today, learning how to do some things that we wanted to get out of Infinite Campus, and
What
she's.
is Infinite Campus?
It's a student information system, so every student has a state ID, and that's in Infinite Campus, and you track their grades and.
Okay, so
Parents
that's
can
how
log
you,
in and look at grades and attendance.
that's how
and-
the parents keep track of
Yes.
what's going
Yeah,
on with
and
the
then
kids.
if they send a note, like if something's going on at school,
They
they'll
send it to
send
them.
it to you.
Can we take a
So
second
what,
break?
what's
I'm gonna-
Remind, is Remind the emergency notification thing, what's
Another
another?
notification.
Yeah, it's like what you
Coaches
use
use
in
that a
sports.
lot too.
Remind is kind of
Coaches
like
use that.
a lot with sports.
The
Okay.
teachers use it for letting parents know of upcoming things for that specific class,
Okay,
so
Sports, right?
it's kinda used by
so
multiple.
they're kinda used the same, for the same purposes a little bit?
Well,
Communication?
Infinite Campus does have a messaging opportunity, and.
It's really more sports on the
Russell's
Remind,
telling you.
and to be honest, I don't get much from the class, so.
I'm asking because of this exercise we're doing on the safety plan, that was in some of the other ones, they said that was one of the ways that you use to alert parents of an emergency, was Remind. Is that, do we use it
We don't use it for that purpose, we have no. No, we use it for sports.
Yeah, every single team has their own class created so that coaches can communicate with parents. Make their personal numbers.
It's like skills that's
It's like extracurricular.
Yeah, track all of it, and then they'll send you little messages.
You should look up
So,
electricity and see if we're
what
actually
do
spending
you
100,000.
to alert parents to an emergency, is we use Infinite Campus.
And then maybe we'll just have electricity in
E3
half
we
the
use it
building every other day.
Hospital, police department.
Lana needed to take a little break.
I actually used to do that.
Okay. Geez, we already burned an hour. I have to go faster.
I know, right, I'm like, yeah, it's already tempered.
We covered a lot of stuff.
It's time.
So far we spent 58,000.
Of what?
She wanted me to look at the electricity bill.
Oh, cause I said, is it really $100,000 a year?
We've spent 58,457 so far.
We only have 3 months left, so that's,
And it's been, you know, nice weather, so you
True
probably,
that.
you know, that
Spent less
helped,
than normal.
that helped
Yeah.
a lot.
that's true.
It's getting so low, it's getting hard to squeeze it to get out in the ocean, it hurts.
I don't really have any names in the basket for third and fourth, but on third and fourth, for absorption, the cost, when they start adjusting those, would it be
What
better,
absorbing cost?
like if we hire more pairs to help them in third and fourth, when we have to start adjusting, would that help absorb some of the cost?
And that really depends, because it depends on the instructional competency as well. I mean, what do we need, if we had 32
That's just,
fourth graders, we would divide them into 16 and 16, we don't need power for 16 kids. You know, for the 29, you need power, but that has worked out because those kids are being sent out to different schools, so that has helped a lot. But, you know, you have, we don't really need a power in a class of 16 kids, whether they're third, fourth, fifth, or sixth grade. The teachers should be able to control that and manage that,
I just think,
you know.
because of fourth grade habit.
Now, if there's kids that need, you know, behavior modification situations, that's where something like a dean comes into play, or a counselor. No, it's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up is maintenance, and of course, technical services makes good sense, although we did try to divert, you know, the technical service and repairs and those sorts of things to the building reserve where you have some funding. We just took a look at the electricity bill, and so far it's 58,000, but as was made, the point that was made is it was a mild winter, and we might not want to, pare back
Yeah,
necessarily.
probably don't, yeah.
And I don't know, look at some of these others and see what, if we're kind of in line with, obviously, these are all self-explanatory. I don't think we have spent much in repairs and maintenance out of the general fund, because we had it available in the building reserve. Rental and lease, does anything come to mind, Russell? What do we rent? Do we rent equipment? Do we rent?
Yeah, every once in a while, we'll do equipment rentals.
Yeah.
Skid steers and those skis.
And it's not a lot, it's not much for
Do you have
budget,
like a
but-
tank rental for like, you know, propane or?
We do have
anything else?
leases, our propane leases are like $20 a tank for the whole year, so.
Oh, okay, cause you guys, okay, well, that's good,
And we're actually renewing that. You'll see that in your packets. So we're up for a lease renewal. It's a 10-year lease for Norco that we need to bring to the board because it is such a long lease.
Uh-huh.
That's coming up, and then we have Energy Partners who took over 406 propane.
Uh-huh.
They're going to lease us a propane tank, which Russell mentioned was the $5 per year
Oh, that's awesome.
lease for that. So those are two leases that I can think of, and the copier, but that's not a maintenance thing. Yeah, we do rent the copy machine, and lease the copy machine.
Yeah,
So.
cause it was late, yeah, it was.
And so, a little bit of travel, if Russell wants to attend a training of some sort, and then supplies. And again, supplies can't really come out of building reserve, it's more building maintenance and repairs, so, you know, you need toilet paper, paper towels, soap, that sort of stuff.
Disposal services, I just looked it up.
Okay.
We're at 23,500 for disposal services.
Yeah, so we're pretty much spot on, yeah. And then, of course, the propane, which we just talked about, the tanks, check that out and see how we did there.
Okay.
A little bit of vehicle fuel for errands and such, $3,000 for minor equipment, which isn't much, a little bit of dues, I don't know that there's a membership or any kind of dues, it looks like the previous year we paid for some kind of dues. And we have a lease on AEDs, and so we created a kind of a safety code, since you're working on safety and that sort of thing, we might want to, safety and security, we might wanna, the AED definitely falls in that realm, and then we might wanna add some other things there if
And we
you,
had that least because the ones that were in the building were 12 years old. And the batteries, even they cost $700 to get the batteries, which was really defunct because it never really worked. So
Yeah, so we sent in the previous AEDs to a rebate program, and they've received them, and they're gonna review them and let us know what they're worth,
Take some money back.
and then we'll get a little bit back for that.
And so we might wanna build out that budget a little bit for your safety and security. Sounds like you're doing some work in that area.
Do you want the gas number?
Sure.
Okay, so the gas is currently at 23,620, so it's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, good. I like that. It's nice some things are under.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you need some supplies and all of the same things that you need in a regular ed classroom, you need in a special ed classroom. And so we've got some budget authority here, which probably could be moved to the tuition fund. Cause we're gonna have funds available in there. And then this is really, of course, joining the co-op. They're going to get your IDEA B and your IDEA preschool, which are federal special ed dollars, but they got them this year, so that's not gonna change anything this year. And then you get a related services block grant from the OPI that goes directly to the co-op, and then you have to provide the match. So this $79,000 is the only piece that you're going to see that you actually write a check and send to the co-op, so.
How come we have two supplies line under special ed?
Do I have two? Oh, I know I do. Look
We
at
got
that.
one for 5 and one
Oh,
for
but they have a
1,000.
different, one's a 2150. and one's
Wonder
a-
if what's high
Oh,
school
yeah,
is over
2150 was speech language pathology supplies, so.
Okay, so that
Those will
one
be
will disappear
provided
too.
by, those will be
Co-op.
provided by the co-op going forward. And, yeah, so that one can go away. Good catch. Alright, and then we do, we try to keep the paras, MANT trained, and so we need to provide some money to do that with. The Indian Ed for All, the revenue that you receive then needs to be spent on, programs educating students about the Native American tribes in Montana. So we take exactly what you get and put it in the budget, and then during the year, if the teachers have an idea of something they wanna do, we've got it earmarked and they can go there and use it.
Gwen, I know I'm not supposed to participate, but the man would be provided by the co-op too.
That's true. And probably most of the training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, just that.
Good catch. Perfect. I like it.
Sorry, is that okay? I know.
That is.
Yeah, you can engage.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Especially if you're gonna save money, totally
You
want
can
you to
save.
engage.
We're still looking for you in here, we haven't found your name yet, we're hoping we didn't lose half of you somewhere.
We're gonna find you, Jean, I promise.
Alright.
Okay, and then, the vocational education courses are budgeted separately because you, get career and technical ed funding from the state. But part of the formula determining what you're going to get from the state is how much are you currently spending on these programs in the general fund? Cause if you're not spending any of your own money, then yeah, we don't necessarily wanna give you some more. So we do have to be careful, we don't wanna, shoot ourselves right in the foot by not spending the money and then eventually our CTE funding dries up as well. So they are split separately, they're coded separately so that we can report on them. And so, in the spring, there's a report, and I think it's due any time now, but you actually track your graduates and see how many of them are working in the trades and how many of them are going to college, and that weighs into the formula. Whether or not you have, the student organizations that go with the business and the industrial arts and the family consumer science. If you have student organizations, you get some additional funding from the state for that. So, that, you report all of that, they put it in a formula, and that determines what you're gonna get from the state, so we wanna keep those budgets intact.
I have a question about
Sure.
Skills USA. We talked about next year putting that into a curriculum, right?
It's,
And having
the
it-
school's been registered for a year, which says that the teachers can use all their websites and their information, and you can have up to 144 kids design what we wanna do. So, Roberta will come at some point, probably the beginning of next year, and explain what that school-wide,
It's gonna, yeah, cause it's gonna be
Yeah.
part of our curriculum, part of
We're
our
doing- well,
extracurricular
Yeah,
stuff.
part of these programs too, yeah.
Okay,
It could be done in the classroom as well.
right,
It doesn't have to be
right.
extracurricular, it could be in the classroom, just as, that's the scope of the
So
teaching
that
skills
budget
are.
will go into our classic budget, going into next year.
Yeah,
If there's any expenses related to it. There's also some money in student activities for that, for Skills USA. And student activities is the next budget, and it's relatively significant. And, I did include some information in your packet of papers. The first, it's on page 6, and you've seen these numbers before, but I just want to provide them to you again, so you can familiarize yourself, remind yourself what these different programs are costing. And, because I know there's been some conversation about maybe reducing some of these opportunities. And so that first page, this data was gathered from many places, from the business office, from, Catherine did the gathering of information on what the gate income was, and, let's see, the amount of leave maybe that was used, but anyway, it was a combination of several people working on this data. It was from last fall, so it's not like super current, but it gives you a pretty good idea in the far right-hand, third from the end, total cost, what each one of those sports costs. So, then on the next couple of pages is every single coach and advisor, and, their years of experience and what their stipend cost. I separated this high school from the junior high, because I do think you wanna have a fairly robust conversation about what you're gonna do next year for athletics and activities. And, I know that it was mentioned, so where do our coaching stipends fall compared to our competitors or our like schools, right? So I did gather information from Big Fork and Troy and Thompson Falls, and you fall kind of in the middle. There's some people that are paying more for their coaching stipends and some people that are paying less, and it's a combination of things. So if you look at this, and do I have this on, I do have this, so I can put it up on the, let's see, right here. So in this column is tied to the base teacher's salary. And so the base is 38.5. Actually, last year your base went up because of stars, but we froze the base for student activities, cause if we'd have plugged in that $40,000, it would have blew these stipends right out of the water. So the base is set, and then the stipend is, like, for example, for the athletic director, is 13.5% of the base. So if you take 13.5% of this $38,000 base, this is the salary. And I know there's been conversation about potentially combining those two positions and combining those stipends. They also get a very small percentage of increase for their number of years of experience. And so, you know, and then depending on the sport, now in this example, the head football coach, their stipend is 10.5% of the base. And what I saw in the comparisons with other schools, sometimes these percentages are higher, sometimes their base is higher. You know, I mean, there's many factors involved, so you can't like totally compare yourself to the neighboring schools. But and I'd be happy to share the schedules from the other schools, but you're kind of right in the middle. There's
I would
people
like to
below
see
you.
that.
Okay, I will share
And when
those.
you look at, so thinking about like if I have let's say a head coach at 10.5 and maybe one season, but an activities director does all year long, even through the summer, are there some schools that their athletic director stipend is more than the 13.5%?
So you have that would be a correct statement, but you also have in some schools where the athletic director is a teacher and they're just given 2 periods a day. Well, 2 periods a day of a teacher's salary is significantly higher than this stipend. So it depends, everybody handles it differently. Sometimes their principal is the AD, and so, you know, they're given, well, it's just folded into their salary and it's one of their duties, right? So you have lots of options with that stipend versus, having a principal cover it, or, having a teacher,
Yeah, so
have it be
Hot
part of a
Springs,
teacher day,
he gets 2
periods a day
periods
to do.
to accomplish
his
for
AD.
that stipend.
Yep, and he's high school, junior high and high school, yep. So that's how this works, if you're interested in looking.
So can you, cause I know that this is you make
Yeah.
a change, it moves it through. If we did the base at the STARS Act, say we unfroze that, what does it look like? I'm just curious, what does that look like if the actual
Okay.
stipend is off of what our STARS Act is?
So I think the STARS Act is like 42,500.
For the second year?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it'll.
Let's see. Would you like to make $575,000? We are honest. We totally have that money.
Yeah, it didn't really change it that much because wasn't it? Oh yeah, that one was really nice, but it was 52
And it would make it
it'd make it 57.
Well, I mean, that's not a stick in the eye, it's an improvement.
There it goes
Third
again.
time I've heard that phrase.
Oh, really?
It's new to me. Okay.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, thank you, I really was curious about that.
Yeah, you know, maybe we should take a serious look at that option. I was just afraid it would blow your, all your stipends out of the realm of possibility. And you do have, well, and I don't even know which of these might be vacant, so maybe at some point Russell needs to let us know who
Well, I think like
wants to
right now, we
return
don't
and-
have baseball, right? Yeah, so baseball's gone, so we don't have to worry about that one anymore.
Is that forever?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
gone. Yep. So those ones, we don't have to do anything with those, they just disappear.
Okay. And then here's the sponsors, and they don't, these sponsors typically don't even get an increase from year to year, so.
Oh.
And that's what it says in the negotiating agreement,
Negotiation, yeah,
so,
okay.
yeah. So anyway, I think you've got some information, you can see what these sports are costing, you know what the coaching stipends are. And then we have one more conversation, and it's the page 9, 10, and 11 in your packet, and because I don't have this electronically, it's out of the student activity, software. But this is a list from the student activity accounts, and these are separate from the district. These are fundraising efforts.
Just want to throw out there, Jennifer Lynn's name did not come up anywhere.
Oh, we're not done.
Okay, good.
That was just one budget, we have
Okay.
about 10 more to
That
go.
was just the gist.
Making
Yeah.
sure she wasn't anywhere in general.
Buckle up, Lana. We're
Yeah.
here for a while.
So make sure Gina is not lost.
Yes, good
Got your
job.
back, friend.
So, again, this is money that's raised by students and technically spent by students.
Okay.
You know, the district can't go in here and say, okay, well, we're going to spend this track money that these students did a fundraiser and raised, and we're gonna use it for new rugs or something. So it does require sign off by students. But, the problem that we're seeing, because the balance in these funds is over $200,000. And number one, the auditor said that is not really acceptable. You have $200,000 sitting in an account and you're still doing fundraising on in your community. That's not actually a good idea. And if you're not going to use these funds, then you should stop fundraising, right?
Right.
And it's also putting you into another level of requirement for the audit that's costing you another $2,500 for them to audit it because of the size of the account. So we've made some notes off to the side to kind of, in case the title of the project didn't clearly, state what that fund is used for. And, I would point out a few for you. The second one down is activity tickets, and you know what those are. That money comes into that account out of the Infinite Campus system, like people can go online and buy their activity tickets. And then we take the money out of there and drop it into student activities and into that activity ticket, and then it is split. 75% of it goes to the athletic, which is two lines down that shows a negative, and we were working on moving those funds today, so the next time you see this report, it shouldn't be in the negative anymore. 10% of the activity tickets go to student council, 10% goes to music, and 5% goes to drama. And so that somewhere along the line, those decisions were made that, we're gonna have activity tickets, students are gonna buy them, we're gonna split the money so that these organizations, probably because they don't have a lot of opportunity to raise money necessarily, but, so that's what's going on with activity tickets, and then the athletic fund that's in the negative. We also each fall take $800 out of that account and keep it on hand for cash boxes for the games and that sort of thing. And then at the end of the year, we put it back in, so that'll take care of, but that deficit will be erased.
I do have a question for you. I see
Yep.
you still have JMG, and we don't have that anymore, and I know they have some other classes that are like that. Are you going to, what's gonna happen with that money?
So the JMG is actually a formal organization, so you can't really just, yeah.
Put it like into skills, or put it into a different thing?
Similar.
It's a state organization, we probably should reach out to them and, clarify what we can do with it. It's really a good program. If you could get someone interested in activating it, then they could tap that $5,000.
Jobs for Montana graduates. That's one of my favorite classes in school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but we should clarify what we can do with it, Monica. Good question though, cause,
Yeah, cause that can, if we could put that somewhere else,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
and Skills USA is probably very similar in scope, and
Yeah.
so that might be a good idea. Yep. One on the back on the front page, kind of 3/4 of the way down, is class of 2025, who of course graduated. They have a little balance left in there, and, typically kids will spend that on something for the school or give a donation to something. That class left it, so we're suggesting that it goes into the freshman class kitty to kind of give them a little boost started on their fundraising, so. But we should close it, because there's no point in sitting on these accounts that, like 23 and 24 and 25, they're not here anymore. We should close them. And a good time to do that will be when you move to your new software, you don't wanna bring a bunch of old information. Well, there's no information coming, but old, clubs that aren't really active anymore. So we're suggesting that we,
Is that something that we vote on, or that you just do?
we'll probably bring it back around for, this is what we found out, this is what we're recommending, and then you all can approve that, yep. There's a revolving, on the second page, there's a revolving account, and so in some instances, because a check has to be written immediately, the student activity fund will write a check like for fingerprinting. We have to send checks with them when we send them in, and we can't wait to do them monthly when Marin writes checks. So we pay for them out of student activity, then we turn around and reimburse it from the district. So sometimes you see checks written to yourselves, and you wonder why you would write a check to yourself, but that's the case. The learning lab, and we have next to it snow cones, and was it really snow cone sales that
Yeah.
made that?
Karen.
Yeah. So that could be moved to another organization. But I encourage you to take a look at this, and if you have some thoughts on what, there's a combined fundraiser that's almost at the bottom of page 2, and that was a group, I think when they moved some of the sports to that 2-tier, or when they brought them off
When they-
of the 2-tier?
Maybe when they
Then-
brought them off, cause the softball had a ton of money, and they fundraised all the time, and I
Other
wasn't
groups
sure what
did
happened
it.
to their money.
Yeah,
Correct.
and this was kind of a community effort, it was a large fundraiser, raised this $12,000, and it's
Of
been
course, now I
sitting
see
there.
softball's got 41,000 in there, so maybe they got to keep their money.
It's the
Yeah.
extracurricular fundraising, $700.
Yeah,
So maybe this is when softball became part of the school and they did the same fundraiser, but instead of doing it just for softball, they did it for all of them.
yeah, but they
But it was the
didn't,
same
they
fundraiser,
didn't do
yep.
anything with it, it's
Just
sitting there. Yeah,
Right.
and that's the
Well,
point the auditor's
Look, I'm looking
making,
at
that,
page one, so baseball has $330, it's not a program anymore, right? So
Yep.
what happens with the 330 that they raised for baseball?
well, you could do whatever you want with it. It looks like they had some revenue this year, and if, probably in anticipation of having a spring program, and if they're not, then, maybe who are the kids that normally play, we can
Right.
divert it to something else that they're wanting to
And
play.
just
'cause-
underneath it,
they-
cheerleaders, we haven't had cheerleaders in a lot of years, like,
Yeah.
but they have a fund of money, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
right.
problem.
Cheerleaders go.
These accounts haven't been spent out over years.
Yeah.
Could
Yeah.
we maybe make like a generic sports account that we could,
Well, I
yeah,
think we have
or we
one.
could drop it into athletics up there. And
Yeah.
athletics pays for the referees, pretty much that's what it pays for.
maybe that, yeah, that would be a
I
good
mean,
idea.
that's what, these ones that they're not programs, and if we can move them, putting up in athletics helps. And can we take that extracurricular fundraising, since it was for all of them, and put it up in athletics so it can go to all of the sports? Or a piece of it to each of the active sports we still have, can we percentile that out
You
in
can do
some
whatever you would like.
equitable way? Okay,
Yeah, probably however many kids they have in each and
so much
divide it,
goes per kid, here's the percentage, and
and whatever sports they're in.
You might also, if you're going to cease to have some of these be school-sponsored events, you could maybe take some of that money and put it in there to help them. But some of those, golf has 3,000, cross-country has almost 10, wrestling has 10, softball has 41.
1,000.
They've got money to run a program if they wanna do, operate their own program, if you're not wanting to continue the funding them.
Cut back on some athletics.
If we went back to the
tap
tier
into some of
2
this money.
system, yeah, and then maybe take some of this extracurricular fundraising
To help them out.
to help them if we move back to tier 2.
What would, $201,000 is obviously not acceptable to the auditor, what is an acceptable?
Well, I think like half of that.
And you said
You
that.
could add about 100.
And you definitely, well, and you are under the FDIC level, but as far as additional costs for your audit, you need to get it down in the $100,000 realm, yeah.
When we co-op for soccer, I don't see, do we not have any fees because of soccer since we co-op, or?
Soccer pays for everything. They
So
pay-
soccer doesn't cost
we-
anything?
No, nothing.
Okay, so that's why it's not on the list.
Yeah, cause they have their own booster club.
Okay, I
And
just
so-
didn't know if we had to pay since we were joining them or something.
You pay, but then you get paid back.
Didn't we?
Oh,
I think
okay.
we paid $250 to be part of the co-op, right?
We paid for the HSA membership.
Correct.
And initially we paid for transportation and reimbursement.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's why, okay.
But
Just
they
wanna
did
make
their
sure
own
we-
fundraising even
Yeah.
for transportation, we really didn't contribute anything to
Yeah,
soccer.
they-
Zero
We
sum.
didn't have to, yeah.
Yeah,
Not to say if they didn't fundraise well, we would have been on the hook for transportation, but they did really good fundraising.
That was part of their initial thing, they were very
Correct.
generous.
If they would
Yeah.
make sure that was covered.
yeah, and so, near the bottom of page 2, there's a counseling endowment, and sometimes people will come into the school and say, I'd like to make a donation to help out kids who can't afford their activity ticket, or this or that, and that goes into that account, and it's parsed out. Principals basically make the recommendations that, child needs such and such, and they will take it out
And our
of.
counselors are very, very active with that, and they serve well, they serve the kids well. Kids
Yeah.
need things.
Make sure
Just
no
teaching
child
them
has to
counseling.
miss out because they can't afford to do it. Yep. So, yeah, look it over and
I'm writing
send,
down, who would look into the JMG funding and what could happen to that? Would that be something
We
that,
started to look into it, we connected, thanks to Glenn, with someone in Hot Springs, and Heidi has the information.
about restarting the program here, or
Yeah,
about
to
seeing if
see-
we can move the money out of there?
Oh, well, we could do both, I guess.
Yep.
Like, we could do that, she's
Options on all
connected.
sides would be great, yeah.
Okay, yeah, she was connected to see, just like Hosan and those other things that had been around a long time ago and just took a vacation.
Mhm.
So we'll find out that, that's
Okay.
easy call.
Yeah, it would just be nice to know if we can restart it, or if not, what are we legally allowed to do with might sing it.
Right, or align it with those other activities we do have that are similar.
Yeah. Cause I'm gonna guess that's kinda why JMG went away, we replaced it with something similar, but it wasn't JMG specific. And that would be probably,
Businesses.
Katie Mitchell,
Yeah,
could ask. Cause then Katie had it for the last year, before it went away, I think Katie Mitchell was the JMG person last year, so she probably know what we replaced it with.
I'm pretty sure.
Is it just business essentials
I
or
thought so,
something?
they used to have both, and there was a lot of overlap.
So your total student activity budget in the general fund's right at $200,000, so. Good conversation for going forward. So, that's the general fund, so let's, move on to the others if you, the others are quite a bit simpler, so, and I know we're, hour and a half in. So transportation, getting children to and from school, right? And we take a portion of the superintendent and a portion of the principals and a portion of the business managers, and we could probably bump all of those to a 0.2. Principals deal with any discipline issues on the buses, and, superintendent is involved in the county transportation committee that approves all the routes in the county. And so all of these people do contribute at different levels, and it is appropriate, so.
So
no
if it
problem.
went to 0.2, what would that take off of the general that we have currently? The general
So
fund we're paying?
$11,000 from the superintendent, so that would help
Okay.
get you,
Yeah.
in 16, so the difference,
Nice.
8,000
Yeah.
on each one of those,
Okay,
and so.
The
6,000
transportation is
there.
one of the funds that we're dipping, down.
Right, but this would be for next year's budget that we would, we have to get to the end for this year, but we could legitimately, bump
budget a little
those
bit more,
up.
yeah,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
Cause that, I don't know if we figured out in general, if we just kept everything exactly the same, what our deficit is in the general fund for next year, but this will take a nice
Yeah.
off of it,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I think we are landing somewhere in we're getting close to 200,000
Okay, so
with
this
the
is,
changes that we've talked about.
yeah, okay.
So, and then really the only other thing you have in there is your bus contractor. And then currently you have a fuel supplement agreement, so at the end of the year, $2.04 worth of fuel is built into your $6.76 per mile. This is next year's rate, I think this year it's $6.56.
Okay.
And then it's compared to the actual cost of fuel, and the district provides
The
a
difference.
payment for the difference,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
And at this point, since we haven't met with River Transportation to talk about an MOU, since we're not, most of that is not going to be fuel now we're looking at electricity, losing electric prices, that could
Fuel
feasibly be a little
supplement
bit
could
different.
go away, potentially.
Or transition to something that looks different.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then you have a few individual transportation contracts, and that's parents that you pay to bring their children to school, typically because, maybe the child only doesn't go a full school day, so they bring them in late, or they leave early, and so there's no buses running, so the parents bring them and pick them up, and you pay them for that, but that's paid partially by the county and partially by the state. The district doesn't even pay any of that, so, but we have to include it in our budget authority, because we pay it to them, and then we get it reimbursed, yep.
Okay.
And then we wanna have a 10% contingency in there for things that we didn't plan for. And, in this instance, we're running, we would have to increase our levy because we're running about 10 grand behind.
Okay,
And
but
it's
that's
a
cause we bumped everyone
permissive
to
levy.
0.2,
Yes,
yes,
yes, it is.
okay.
And then you see at the bottom of each of these, you'll see a number that's for TRS, which is teachers' retirement, and a number for PERS, which is public employees' retirement. And then these numbers are pulled over to the retirement budget. The retirement budget is a countywide levy, but here's the salary amounts, and then social security is paid out of the retirement budget, teachers' retirement is paid out of the retirement budget, public employees' retirement, and unemployment. and you levy what you need, you send that information to the county, and they levy it, so. But, that kind of covers I had a couple of notes here. One was to change the percentages, which we did. The other thing is that, looks like in the past, the transportation portion of your property liability insurance has been being paid out of the general fund. If you ask them, they will tell you what portion belongs to transportation, and it can legitimately come out of transportation, yeah, and we had that conversation, we're having the conversation on the 3-year average on fuel costs. Yeah, I think I covered my notes that I had for you. Food service fund, which kudos to Larry Joe, he is doing an awesome job. And we're really looking for basically a balanced budget. This is our staff, and I don't know, we've never really said to Larry Joe, do you have any plans for any changes in your staffing? But if you do, you can let Maren know that, and we can do adjustments. I haven't really done anything with this budget because I didn't know if, the bulk of it really is staffing, and depending on whether she has some, and these folks would be considered obviously for an increase in wages. And, then we'll see where we land with, supplies and food, and probably fashion next year's budget off of what we spent this year.
Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
Even though it's great, we're not in the red
Okay,
so far
we're
this
still
year.
a little far off.
Without the that little bit of insurance claim, it's, on mine, it's a little over $9,000 so far, which is like, you think, oh, that's huge. It's really not. I've brought in $11,000 worth of, commodity stuff, right? So at some point, I would like to just educate you on those things, that I've discovered this year, and how, the $9,000 really isn't very much at all, and where we've had to cut back, or where we see the, differences compared to maybe in the quality, or the quality, compared to what it used to be, all those things. So I would like to at some point, so that we can get a good feel for going forward into next year, where we might be, because it's been me keeping like tight control of it, all year. To get at that, and the more wages go up,
Yes.
And food goes
That's
up,
the point,
it's gonna crimp me even more. We're really busting to try to keep the numbers up, and without breakfast in the classrooms, we would be in the positive this year.
I'm glad that.
I have all of those numbers, but at some point, I would just like to share that with you, so that you have a better grasp on where it's at, and
what
the
you'd like to
reality
look
of
like
it.
for next year.
Okay, how about the numbers? What percentage of the students are you feeding, Larry Joe? Do you know kind of where you're at?
I do on the next board meeting,
Okay.
I'll have that handout for you,
Okay.
and it has a percentage of what our, each revenues are, what our expenditures are as far as month to month, and then
The number of
how many kids
students.
we're serving,
Okay.
the fluctuation from month to month, and what that means on the bottom line at the end of the month, if we're down 20 a day, and what that means, and how much that I have all that for you to
Okay.
look at, so that
Good.
you can get a good feel for where it's at.
More information to come on that? Okay. So the tuition fund, we've talked about quite a bit. So first of all, the tuition.
There's Gina Ferlin.
Oh, good.
You are there.
She's
Sorry, you told me to look out for
She's
her.
a full FTE right there. I thought I lost half of her.
There she is.
Right.
The whole thing.
Awesome. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, me
Okay.
too.
Yeah. So, you do have students attending other schools, and, when we finalize the year-end processes, we will figure out, the number of days that the school they attend will tell us how many days they were in attendance, and then we will pay their tuition next year in December and May, but we have to levy it in August to pay that. And then a bigger piece of that is the special education levy. And so if you recall, that calculation is per student. And so you look at every one of your special needs students, you, cost out their share of the teacher, their share of a para, or if they have a full-time para, the cost of their para, any technology that they might need, supplies, all of that, you look per student, you reduce that amount by the state special ed dollars that you get, and then you can permissively levy the difference. And Taylor was working on those numbers today, and, the number she came back with is 245,000, so you do have some room to grow there. And we'll have that conversation about what you think the growth can be and what traffic will bear.
We'll get
But-
direction on that.
Yeah, you do have, a good, decision to make there, so. And then you turn around and pay, special education costs out of them. And we will be moving some costs from the general fund here. This would also, include the potential for some additional paraprofessionals, and then their salaries would come out of this budget as well. So it kind of balances itself out, but we can move some, I think we should move our, supplies and that sort of thing over here now, because now we've got, this past year was the first year you've done this, and so now we've got a little bit of experience to be like, okay, how much, what can we do here?
Yeah.
So we'll make those moves and
When,
like that.
am I the only special ed teacher on the page?
Currently, you're the only one paid out of tuition.
Okay.
Remember, we're required to spend a certain amount of the general fund. The state share, we actually have to spend out of the general fund, so we left some in there and took you out, and
Okay.
it's
You're
not,
still getting paid.
yeah, it's,
Well,
I'm glad your name is on here
Yeah.
somewhere.
That makes, yeah.
I mean, we could put all three of you in here and do a third, but
Yeah,
I just usually
okay.
pull one over and,
And that's for the match, right?
The one in the general fund.
well, we've got a match of the 7,000 that's gonna go to the co-op. And then we have, it's called a reversion, and you calculate the state's share of special ed, and at the end of the year, you report to them, and if you haven't spent
But
that
that-
much,
Yeah,
then you have to send it back to the state.
right, so you
you
wanna
have
make
to
sure that you,
Spend the
Spend it
Spend it in
reversion
the general
piece.
fund, so
Yes,
we're.
and that was that 103,000,
Yes.
but we had spent quite a bit more than that. And if we get too close here at the end of the school year, we may move some salaries out of the general fund into the tuition, cause we have money there that we may not. I mean, it's gonna be so close that we might have some moves.
What are these Thompson Falls Hot Springs usual accounting line items? Is
That's
that
those
students
tuition-
that are housed that are going
Yep.
there?
From planes that are going to those schools. And that's a state calculation, we plug it into Mayfair's, it tells us what their tuition is, and it's interesting because you have a tuition rate, and Thompson Falls has a tuition rate, and you compare the two, and you pay the lower of the two. So if your tuition rate is lower than theirs, then you pay your rate.
do we get
So,
some?
You do get
That's
some.
the students
Yeah.
that came here from
Yeah,
there.
you actually have quite a few, that goes into the general fund.
Oh,
Even though it's tuition, it has nothing to do with the tuition fund, which is
Okay,
typical
Dear
legislative,
God, right?
typical legislative operation, right? Cause we call it the same thing and the money goes two different places. The idea of it is, so the state money follows the child. And so wherever the child goes to school, the state's gonna send the money there. What doesn't follow the child is the levies. And so your taxpayers might end up paying for students from another district, another county, so on. And so in the last legislative session, they said, the levy money should follow. So if the student is from Hot Springs, the levy money for that's coming to Plain, their levy money should follow the student to Plains. The state money comes to Plains, right? So they're saying, so should the levy. And that's what that's all about. But we're all swapping money and
Oh my
sending
God,
it back
it's
and
very
forth. and-
confusing, and it probably costs more to do the paperwork on the tuition moving around than, yeah. fine.
wasn't the very best idea, but you know, it was an idea. So that's a pretty simplified fund, or you know, got a decision to make here. What do we need and what can we levy? Retirement, we talked about. Federal programs is where your grants are, and this is where you see, this isn't really a grant, but it's kept track of in the federal programs fund, and that's your dual credits. You pay colleges for dual credits, you pay teachers who are teaching the dual credit classes, and then the Title I grant, this is where most of your paras are, between special ed and Title I. You had a part-time teacher, because remember you saw that Marley Meredith was a part of her time is spent working with Title I students. Are you a school-wide program, Dr. Walsh? Okay. And then we have a full-time teacher here in Jill Rice, and then we had a portion of Lori Grabine being paid in there, which of course we won't be doing, so we might be able to bring a portion of another teacher over and into this fund. This grant is $264,000 a year. It will likely be very similar next year. But see, just a portion, and it kind of depends on what the aide is doing. If they're not working with special needs students, then they're working with other students who need additional help, and that's what Title I is all about.
Okay.
And then this IDEA B and IDEA preschool, this year it went to the co-op, and next year it will go to the co-op. You do have some, all my references went wonky, but you do have about $80,000 between these two funds, Medicaid MAC and Medicaid reimbursement. And that's reimbursement that's built up over a number of years. Medicaid MAC is a program that there's a reimbursement for some of your administrative time for administering the Medicaid paperwork and so on. And the money has just built up over time, and it's sitting in Fund 15, and it could be tapped if you you can use it for anything, because it's actually reimbursement of money you've already spent. So you can literally use it for anything.
So we could use it for part of the administrative salaries?
You could.
Or if we happen to come up a little short this year, we could bring it out of there. If we could
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it's money that's built up over time, so it's not money you get every year, so you do get some Medicaid reimbursement. Next year, the co-op will be doing your Medicaid reimbursement. I believe you will see a significant increase in what you're receiving, because they know how to do it, they do it every
All the
time,
time,
they do
yeah.
it well, and so that's gonna be a plus.
And they're
They'll
really
likely
good.
pay.
Following what they're legally required and can do, they don't break the law, but they actually maximize what we can do,
Yes.
which is really helpful.
So that's gonna be another plus of being part of the co-op. This is that CTE money I was talking about. This is what you get from the state. But again, it requires you to spend some in the general fund. And here's the different programs, and this is annual. It's not a lot, but it's something in addition to what you provide. 21st Century program, and that's mostly your after-school program. It pays stipend for the person who runs the program and for the people that work within the program, everything from keeping data to providing snacks, particularly in the summer. But yeah, these funds are really for that program. They're not, you could take indirect costs of a couple % off of this if you decided you wanted to, but it's probably better spent in the program. It also provides some busing service to get kids home if they stay for the after-school program. This is Priettes, and this year, portion of Lori Rabine was paid out of that Priettes funding. It's not really a grant. It's directly tied to the number of students that you serve, and provides guidance for kids that are, for special needs kids again. It's run out of the Department of Labor, not a lot of money. but again, tapping into all the revenue sources that you have access to. Carl Perkins, you've probably heard a lot about that over time, that's the, industrial arts kind of.
Is it possible, do you think, to get some more Carl Perkins money if we talk about our Skills USA being part of our curriculum?
That would be for next year.
For next year, do you think we could get some more money from them?
I don't know if it's based on a student count, trying to think on Perkins. It's federal money.
It's federal
and
money
so it's a
for-
pretty finite formula what you get.
And now those are things involved in those classes, if we talk about classes integrating.
If we have class of integration of skills, I think we could like maybe bump up our numbers and be able to get some more money from them. Cause I know that's one places that the feds want us spending.
Yeah, and the
Is Carl
state put a
Perkins.
bunch of money into, so we should see some increases in CTE as well. And that's a good point, is if you have student organizations tied to these courses, that bumps up your CTE
Right,
money.
right.
Yeah, and the higher the number,
Let's plug
the
that in
more
too.
the more you, reach. So having good numbers is important there. And then I had the JMG, cause I thought you had a program, but you do have some money sitting there in student activities. So these are all the variety of different donations, little bitty grants over time, and, some of these, this is a fairly common problem, because each of these little accounts are like a mini checkbook. Their revenue goes in there, and then all their expenditures come out, and they have to balance. And in some cases, you see some negative balances here, and that's because every year you give it a new project reporter. And sometimes people forget and continue to charge things to that project reporter when the money's all done. And that has happened here a little bit. And this has happened over years, but eventually we need to settle this up.
How do we settle it?
We've gotta move some money from someplace to pay, to restore this deficit.
And where would that money theoretically have to come from to restore that? Is that our general ed fund, or is it gonna come from other places?
It can come from wherever you think you might use, maybe there's something tied in student activities that we could move. See this Headwaters Foundation? That's one of my questions. They have Headwater Foundation in the junior high, just about the same amount that they overspent, and so I think this was
Was
just
it
a
same
coding.
thing?
It's, well, technically it is, but some was identified for the elementary and some for the middle school, but we probably could use that to offset the negative.
But the one for the elementary doesn't have a code it built to, it just says.
Well, yeah,
A.
cause we don't want anybody coding anything more to it,
Oh,
because.
okay. I was
That's
like,
why
wait,
we're in
there's
this-
no code there?
That's why we're in this problem.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
like, no, don't use that code. And you see all these that have a
Yeah.
negative that says no, yeah.
You can't do that. Okay.
And this MCA construction trades, that was probably some kind of a grant having to do with the construction. Actually, that is on the pre-ets side. We should probably be using some of our pre-ets money to help offset that deficit, yeah. It's all about the coding, so,
Okay.
we didn't get those tied together.
Are you picking that up?
But
The
it's,
coding thing?
it's not, it's not unusual to
Yes,
see
thank
this.
you. I have
but-
about 10,000 codes memorized right now.
Jesus.
With more to come. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, and the rest of these balances belong to the program that they were designated for, but like, for example, Avista, you don't have an Avista program, so we could use those funds to offset some of these.
Okay.
But we have to be careful because we can't just, this is just general donations, so that could probably be used. This miscellaneous field trips.
That's 5,000 in the hole.
Yeah, and that might be one that we probably need to fix from the general fund, because that's
Oh,
usually
but
where
not
we pay
student
for.
activities.
Well, we could, depending on what we see in there that seems might be appropriate,
Okay.
yeah. So we do need to work that out, we don't want Maren to be responsible
Is
for
that
that
something you
deficit.
can do, just in day-to-day stuff that we don't have to vote on, you can just go in there and start
No, if we're
fixing
gonna
it?
move money,
Okay.
we'll bring it back around to you, tell you
Perfect.
where we're gonna get it from and then, yeah,
Okay.
really when you're JV money, you should always have board approval.
I like it, okay, so,
Yep.
is that something you think we could have like for April, to start working at least on some of that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And the adult ed program, what, is levied in there is a 25% match to your advanced opportunity grant, right? So the advanced opportunity grant is, it was re-awarded to you this year, and it's for career and technical, again, exposing kids to different careers, and it'll pay for their dual credits. Yeah, people get really, it's only around 21,000. How much was it?
27.
Okay, and then you can levy another 25% in the adult ed. So that's what this was last year, and we'll do it again this year. And then you can also run an adult ed program out of here. If you wanna have night classes for adults, it has to be for people over the age of 16 and that you're not counting for student A and B. But you can do anything that you can imagine. And you can levy it without a vote of the people, so it's interesting that it used to be one elementary mill and one high school mill. They removed that restriction, and you can literally, like, sometimes they will offer some art classes in the evening, and they need easels for the art class, and then the easels can also be used in, sorry about that, I thought that was off, can also be used in your art classes during the day. So you can kind of get creative and say, hey, we need, we could do some of that potentially with your art program to kind of offset the costs.
Cause that one tends to be the one that the
Is
supplies cost
high.
the
Yes.
most, correct?
Yeah, and if that person or someone else is willing to do some art classes, you can buy clay and things
Yeah.
like that and spill it over into both. So, it's a little creative financing. Traffic ed, I'm not certain where we landed on our revenues, I will double check that, but we do need to try to, the fees, the $150 actually from the state, I think this year was 110, not 150, but you get paid for every student who completes the class, and then the students also pay. And in order to keep it, solvent, you may have to increase that cost, or supplement it in the general fund, and just go in knowing, you know what, we're gonna budget $2,000 to help for traffic ed in the traffic ed program. And, yeah, the cost that's not in here again is the insurance for the car. Do we lease the car, do we own the car, do we? You own, and do you have two?
We have two.
Yeah, and we could divert some of the insurance cost in here, but it would just increase the cost,
Yeah,
so,
probably not.
yeah.
Well,
And it's, the shortfall's a couple grand,
couple
but
grand, I mean, you could look at,
for
if we-
19 kids.
say if we increased it to $300, but we made sure that those families who are already gonna have our 10 paying that, we have that
Out of that grant.
fund,
But if you.
right, to help cover the cost of, we can't buy the activity ticket, we might need help with driver's ed.
And if you increase it, that might just, the kids be the heck with it, and they'll just go to Thompson and take their test, and then they won't take the class.
Plus, that's what I'm saying, if we make sure families know that there's that fund that helps cover that cost,
Yeah.
there
if they
is a
ask-
fund that we would just be
Yeah.
openly honest about.
Or you could just take $2,000 out of that donation fund every year and put it in traffic ed and
Correct, and
Yeah.
that's what
call it
they-
good, and you don't
they
have to
cover the
increase your,
shortfall.
cause
Yeah.
that is a good point, cause they
Yeah.
can just go and test and.
And
you
I'd
want
rather
good-
go to,
Oh,
take
we
the
want them
class
to take the
personally.
class, absolutely. So I was saying, if we have that fund that helps cover those kids who are gonna struggle to pay, even if $275, see how we can use that to help with
Yeah.
traffic education as well.
Yep. Compensated absences fund, you actually, if you have money left in the general fund, you can transfer it to the compensated absences fund. And this fund is used when you have longtime employees leave your employment and you need to pay out their sick and vacation leave, and then you've kind of built a little kitty to pay that, and we will use some of this, this year. You can pay superintendent's, leave out of this and classified, but you can't pay teachers'
Okay.
leave out of this, so. But we've got a couple longtime classified
Like
folks,
Debbie Polowinski.
Karen, they're leaving, we'll
Karen.
probably tap this
Okay.
fund for that, and Dr. Walsh's.
Is, I have one more question. Is, like, the kitchen employees, that comes out of there as well, not, or does it come out of the food service account?
It could come out of here if, when they leave, it's paying out their 25% of their sick leave and any vacation leave they have on.
So like when the, kinder left and paid it out, did it come out of?
Oh, it probably came out of food service.
Yeah.
Was
that's
that last year?
That's how I have it on my end, and that's why I was just curious if.
Yeah. So you should remind us when you have people leaving that you wanna tap the compensated absences.
Oh, I don't know, I'm just kidding. 'Cause
Good
that was like-
question, though.
That was like $1,500, I think.
Well, that would be kinda nice if you could take it out of something else,
So,
so you wouldn't lose.
It was just, I was interested if that was.
Yeah,
how that
absolutely.
was.
Usually you put money in there and let it sit there, and then we just pay them out of wherever they're paid from. We just get on autopilot, but we're getting in times where we have to pay closer attention to the details, right? So you have a technology levy, an ongoing forever technology levy of $30,000 a year. There's been conversation about, well, we could go out and vote a bigger one, but if it doesn't pass, then you
This
lose
goes
the
away.
30, and so it's best to
I'll keep
just.
what's behind door number one.
Yeah, and so half of, Drayton's salary comes out of there, and then we've kind of parsed it, because we've been carrying over money, and we've kind of parsed it out to keep trying to carry some over every year, but eventually, as you can see, it's going to run out, but then you'll have to live on the 30,000. That's how, it's called tightening your belt, I guess, or you can budget some in the general fund. The flexibility fund, is where the opportunities grant goes, and, I'm thinking this is the one for next year. Cause I have it in red, and anything in red I've touched at least once, this is what it was last year. So we'll be able to levy a little bit more in the adult ed, but yeah, I just sort of drop amounts in there for where I think it might be spent, but you're not tied to any of these. Mostly I wanted to create the codes, so we use the right codes, because see, it has its own program code. And if we don't use it, it doesn't get attached to this grant. And, but it pays for, like I mentioned, dual credit courses,
So some of these things are duplicated in the general fund, and we're just using them under this grant. I mean, we have professional educational services and all this stuff, so there's a specific grant that comes from the opportunity grant, and we get that much money every year, and we move some of the money that we would be spending out of the general fund to here.
Yeah, not necessarily, Colleen, cause this is mostly for students. The actual idea behind the Montana Opportunities Grant was to help parents cover the costs of their students taking AP classes, dual credits, college credits while they're still in high school.
Okay.
The whole idea was to actually reduce costs for the families that were trying to accomplish
So
these.
there's special conditions
Yes.
for how you can spend.
Yeah.
this.
And typically, the district probably was not covering those things, parents were covering them.
Okay.
But in cases where the district was, this relieves their obligation to continue to do it, right? Really, none of this grant can be used for adults. This is all for students, to take them to career fairs, to, pay for them to take their welding certification, or CNA certification, or.
So is that the professional educational services, like certifications and stuff that you get?
Yes.
Kids?
Yes, yep, and for them to travel to the career fairs and that sort of thing, yep. And whatever supplies, in some schools, they're buying students a laptop so that they can take online courses, that sort of thing, you know. If they meet certain criteria, their grade point is a certain amount, and they're willing to take these additional courses, they'll provide them with an iPad or a laptop to take them. So you can really get creative with this. I think that Heidi is kind of the driver behind what happens in this, and I don't know if she's got a group that she works with, Dr. Walsh, or
Which group? Sorry.
for Advanced Opportunity
Yes,
Grant.
she works with guidance counselors and she works with teachers.
Okay, yep. Very good. The building fund, you have a little bit of money there and it could be used for just about, it's left over from the last time you did some sort of a building bond. And then probably has gained some interest over time, but you could use this if you decided you were going to, well, you know, you've been talking roof repairs, that could come out of here and close this fund and till the next time you're ready to build a new building, when the population of planes blows up.
I don't know, do you know, my husband shows me last night, I don't remember who found it, Kevin maybe, he goes, Lonnie, you gotta look at this thing, it was on MSNBC, the top 10 poorest towns in the country. Plains, Montana was number 1.
What?
Yep, we were number 1 on, I think it was MSNBC, had us as the top, based on median income, we are the poorest, not just in Montana, in the United States. Oh boy.
And how old
Okay.
was this?
That was just, yeah.
Just came out.
Yeah, I don't know, just.
I'll retract the statement about
It's going up.
It's a beautiful place though, I mean,
It is.
so.
They wrote nice
it's
things
not-
about how low our crime rate is, and it's real, a beautiful
Yeah.
surprise when you come, however.
It could blow up.
Income's pretty low.
Yeah,
We're all poor. Yeah, we're all poor, it's fine.
The building reserve is again a non-voted levy, and so the state gives you some major maintenance money, and then you can, but you have to levy, it's prorated, and you have to levy your share in order to get their share. And if you decided, oh, we're gonna do $20,000, then their share would drop down, so you need to maximize that.
And is that the max?
Yes, this is, yep. And then you have some cash left in there. It's probably gonna be less, cause you've been tapping into it, and we're using it for all kinds of facility, costs. And we'll continue to do that. We'll move the repairs and maintenance and contracted
say-
services
You
and,
might wanna pay maintenance costs out of here, are we saying like paying their salary out of there?
well,
Or-
you can't.
Okay, not salary, just.
Yeah, yep, repairs and maintenance mostly around the facility, yeah. And I think really, well, we do have utilities and such still in the general fund, those have to stay there. But I would encourage all repairs, maintenance, any equipment to tap this first and then go to the general fund if you need more. So your daycare fund, you just created this fund last year. Before that, your daycare was kind of operated out of Fund 15. But it built up some money during COVID because there were different grants and so on. And, it's paid for basically by the cash that you built up over time and by the parents paying to have their children there. And then you employ a daycare director, then you send a para over there so that this person can have a lunch break and then their work comp and travel, a few supplies, and we have a small equipment code, but we don't have any money in it. And it looks like it could sustain itself for another couple of years, but one of the questions I ask, or I wonder about, is the district, and you have time obviously to make this decision, cause you're probably good for at least another year, but is this something the district wants to subsidize, or will it be dependent upon generating its own revenue? You know, that's the question. And it's mostly teachers is it all teachers who have their children? You don't take children from the community. Is that an option?
That's the way it was when Kevin started, and there was energies into getting it started. And it was only for teachers, it was part of the drawing in,
Yep.
the retention.
Is it just teachers or is it all staff?
It's all staff.
Okay, okay, make sure okay.
But anyway, down the road, you'll probably have to make a decision because it's not going to sustain itself.
There room to add civilian staff, civilian children?
It's
No?
a small
Very
area.
small. It's very
They
small
have
anyway.
We didn't see that when we told this
Kevin said it to me one day, but I think that wasn't.
Used to be an altar care office.
So, is it licensed for a certain number of kids, Dr. Walsh?
I couldn't tell you that.
Okay.
We base, staff on the number of kids. So So if he has, right now, he's just a director.
Mhm.
If we have a couple of more children, then we'll have a director and an assistant, and that's how it goes.
So you have to-
9 is the most I've known in the staff has had.
Okay,
That doesn't mean you're director.
so at some point you decide, is it enough of a draw to help us get teachers that we're willing to subsidize it or not?
Or if there's the need, if you don't have teachers with little
Well,
kids,
yeah,
then,
obviously,
you
if you
know,
get down to
We
one or
open it
two
up to
children,
maybe the
then,
public
yeah.
Yeah.
and let them see. Is there a way to adapt it so that, let's say, we don't want it to go away because I think it is a good draw, but maybe there's a year or two there where staff doesn't need to use it so much, can we open it up to
We
the
can
general
help.
public for the
And
year?
there's whole other certifications and things that you have to do. I mean, the hospital was running a big thing of trying to get early childhood, that's what it was for. And we didn't join that because Karen wanted to keep it, as I think is the right thing for us, for our staff. But if it comes to the point where that, phases out, we don't have anyone, that would be another question.
We can join the hospital.
But there's more it might be out, yeah, it might be something with the hospital could do it. That would feed in, the daycare that's needed in the hospital, they would gladly, Sanders County has a very big problem with early childhood. So, the hospital that would be something you have to really plan for and see what else, and there'll be other regulations, you might not accept that, where we have the kids now. Not that it's bad, I mean, it's, but it would be, have to be more expansive, I would think.
I
So,
like the program, so.
then I
that's all
just
we
wanted
can
to touch for a minute on, something that's on your board agenda for Monday night. And so, certain funds, and we've talked about them before, have permissive or non-voted levies, right? You don't have to vote your transportation levy, you don't have to vote your tuition levy, your retirement levies, your adult ed. But the legislature requires that once a year you notify your taxpayers if those levies are gonna go up or go down. And you have to notify them in March, which you really don't have all the information you need even to make a good guess at this. But we are required to, so we do our best, and that's why the bulk of this budget is done, is because we need this information now to do that advertisement. And so, Maren will has on the agenda for Monday night that you, pass the resolution that recognizes, and I think you're up 3.62 mils. And you'll pass the resolution, you put that on your website, you put it in the newspaper once, and then you move on. And in August, you do your actual budget and increases and decreases on these non-voted levies. You're not tied to these numbers, so if when you get to August,
Just
you
make a
need.
guess, you can change it if
Yes,
you want, but
yeah.
we do have to make a guess.
You do, yep, and you give notice to your people, because they don't ever get to vote on this, and then it just shows up on their taxes, and people are like, what is this, and why didn't I have a say in it? And so, and most people don't read it, some people that read it don't, I mean, yeah. You tell them, if you have any questions, call this office, nobody ever calls, but we follow the law, you've met the requirements. And it's even done on last year's taxable value, so it's really a total shot in the dark, but we do the best we can getting, some close numbers and, get it out there, and so you'll see that Monday night, and that's what that's all about, and it's just on these non-voted levies that you're allowed to levy by the legislature, so. And it's 5:14, and you hung in here really well, and I appreciate it, and we do have a really good start on your budget, and so in August, you get your taxable values, and you polish up the numbers, and then you have some time to think about, I think you've got at least $150,000 worth of leeway in the general fund. But obviously, sort of working at reducing your expenditures over the years, cause I don't know that your enrollment's gonna go up. And so, you can't carry money over from year to year, but you can make changes in staff when you have the opportunity, when people retire or people leave. Then look at, how can we maximize this? Because you don't wanna let people go, right? You don't want someone to lose a job. So if you work the opportunities that come before you and adjust, then you don't ever get yourself in the position where you actually have to lay somebody off, right? So, I think you've got some room to grow and you have some needs, but it's a good time to plan for your future and make changes, so you have lots of thinking to do, and if there's information that I will send this spreadsheet to all of you so you can read it some more. And bring forward suggestions to Maren, and eventually all these things are gonna show up for you to approve along the way, you know. Changes, and eventually a final budget meeting in August, and there you set the revenue budgets. This is the expenditure side, and really, this is your administrator's responsibility. But when you're facing shortfalls, it's good to have input from people who live in the community. What do we want at our schools? What do we think we can live without? It's not some outsider coming in and saying, I think you can do this or that. And I'm not leading you in any direction, I just try to give you information so you can make good decisions.
And
So-
you said from this year to next year, if we stay like we are, we're not necessarily in a shortfall, we have about 150,000, isn't much, but
How much, 160?
150.
I think with the moves that we made, for example, you have a couple opportunities for staffing changes, and some special ed expenditures can go to the tuition. We can pull a few more things, from maintenance over to building reserve. We already made the changes with the co-op, right, that we already, addressed in the budget. So,
And
I
as-
will polish on this some more, and we'll bring it back around.
And as you were
Share it
coming up
with you.
with, like, what we're going to have to pay out this next year, like when we were talking about, basically our biggest thing is paying salaries, right? That included the bump with the STARS Act, what it has to go up to for each of the.
Yes, yeah, that's already in. We haven't talked about wage increases for your non-union or classified, your administrators. I'll send you a 1% number
Yeah.
for each of those groups, and then you can just multiply it and what the cost would be on 1%.
Yep.
And you can just, work through that.
And although we don't know what the superintendent amount will be, some people are new that weren't here during that conversation, I think. We plugged in 120,000 for a soup, 110, they said we're not gonna get somebody like that's really lowballing. And Three Forks just hired one for 130,000, and I don't know that they were doctorate level, right? But, she says we're probably not getting someone for 110, so that we need to be aware of, that part will have to go up probably.
Who wasn't here for that?
No, there was some people, like Gina wasn't here, she came in a little bit late, I think.
Lisa came late, but she left.
Lisa came
before.
late, but she left, so I wanna make sure community hears it, so when they come to our workshop where they can talk, they have some, they can formulate questions about that. Wanna make sure they know the information, even though they're
I
not
get
really
it.
engaged.
Thank you.
Any questions? I know that's a lot of information, but I appreciate you sitting through it.
This was helpful and
Beautiful.
it's gonna take a little, you know,
Blood
it's gonna
pressure.
soak in a little bit, I have to read through this a little bit.
Yeah, every time you hear it, you'll get more
Yeah.
familiar.
Thank you.
We're just in.
Oh, this is
Thank you for going through the whole thing.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yep.
Very helpful.
When is this something that's like, will be posted like on the minutes, when you recorded this, is this,
Yes.
so we can all?
Yep.